Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another episode of Thomas Reacts here on the 360 experience with myself, Thomas Mabaso. Guys, today I want us to go through this interview. This is a recent interview of BBC and Julius Malema, and this interview, I think mainly it was inspired by the fact that in August, South Africa will be hosting the BRICS summit, and we know that due to the war that has been taking place in Russia and Ukraine, the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, they have issued out a warrant of arrest for the Russian president, who is Vladimir Putin, and who is expected to come to South Africa. And as we know it, South Africa is a member of the ICC, the International Criminal Court. They have to abide with the rules, and at the same time South Africa is a member of BRICS, and at the same time Russia is such a huge partner in BRICS. I don't think even arresting Putin is something that South African government is thinking about right now. So the BBC, they've decided to send this guy, this arrogant guy, Stephen Sackur, to interview various political leaders in South Africa. But the interview that really caught my attention was this interview when he interviewed Julius Malema, just to hear what he thinks and how he thinks things are going to happen. So guys, I want us to go through this interview. I know that many of you have already seen this interview, but there are people who haven't seen this interview, or there are people who haven't heard anyone react to this interview. So I hope that we're gonna have fun. So let's go.
It's a hard talk. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to talk to you, Mr. Malema. We are speaking as South Africa is in the middle of an energy crisis. It seems set to get worse. What do you think it is doing to this country?
Well, its aim is to collapse this country and undermine the democratic project, because those in power have relegated their responsibilities to who we don't know. They've not maintained the power stations. They've not built the new ones that are functional, and as a result, we are where we are.
The interim CEO of Eskom, the state-owned energy company, said yesterday that over the coming months of winter they might get to a stage 8 situation, which means there could be power cuts for pretty much 12 or more hours per day. But you have gone further. You have said that you think the grid will collapse. In fact, you said South Africa is going to be plunged into darkness within 2 weeks. Why are you exaggerating?
I'm not exaggerating. I said this before they told you there was a stage 8 coming. The stage 8 is to prepare you that the worst are coming. And I'm telling you the truth as it. What is it that can avoid the collapse of the grid, which they've done in between? Which station have they built that is functional to its expectation? Which station have they maintained? If they said, this one, we're closing it down, we're going to engage in major maintenance of this station. Nothing major has been done.
But your statements could spread panic.
But I must say that based on how things are happening right now, that statement, it really made Malema, it really like chipped away on his credibility a bit, because I remember then he said the electricity will, the grid will collapse in 2 weeks. He said in 2 weeks the grid will collapse, but if anything, the grid has actually improved, because we've seen that the load shedding has been reduced a lot right now in South Africa. Everyone in South Africa can testify that the load shedding is not as intensive as it was before. So because Julius Malema is one person who's been predicting a lot of things, and a lot of those things that Julius Malema has predicted, they've actually happened. So when he predicted that the grid will collapse, people panicked, because they know that there's a high possibility that the grid will actually collapse. But right now, like I'm telling you, like the grid is actually much better. We don't know what they are doing, because there are those people who actually believe that the ANC right now, they are just making things better because they want to get through the elections. But once the elections are over, like it's back to stage 8. So that's what a lot of people are, that's what a lot of people believe. But at the same time, there are those people who don't really care about politics. So they don't care as long as they have electricity, as long as their lives are a bit normal, they don't actually care. But Julius Malema actually said that the grid will collapse, and the grid didn't collapse. So we don't know what happened there, but this is one statement that really actually made people question his words.
Is that what you want?
No, I'm not spreading panic. I'm telling the truth. Stage 8, they are just being polite. We are going to go, and you are talking hours. We are going to go days without electricity. It's a reality that we need to deal with. Even after announcing stage 8, the manner they did. Which ANC politician have you seen panicking? Which president have you seen calling the nation into confidence about what is really happening? We hear from officials as if we don't have elected leadership of this country.
On March 20th, you declared a national shutdown. You tried to shut down the entire economy in the midst of this power crisis. Is that?
He didn't try to shut down the economy. He actually did shut down the economy. I know that this guy is probably going to quote that a certain newspaper said that, but people who live in South Africa know that during the national shutdown, things were actually not working because the companies were closed. People were anticipating this huge march. They were anticipating there were going to be lootings and riots everywhere. So businesses, they were closed. A lot of people were at home, children were at home. No one went to school. No one went to work. He didn't try to shut down the country. He actually did. He shut down the country. Even though the march was not as big as anticipated. But because like people know that the EFF actually goes out there and do its thing, they close down on their businesses.
Responsible?
That is the most responsible thing to do. Do you want me to fold my hands? Do you want me to not do anything? What will history say about me? I'm going to be asked a question, not by you, by the future generation, as to what have you done when South Africa was in a crisis. The most logical thing to do is for the president to resign. Was it in Britain where we saw prime ministers in a short space of time resigning one after another because they realized they were not about to carry the national agenda? The president...
Of course, that's how these people are. It's okay if they change their presidents, but in South Africa, if we say we don't want a certain person in power, they act like we want to overthrow the government. They portray it as if we want to overthrow the government or something. But this is actually something that people have been saying, like, oh, president resigned because you can't take care of this, you can't take care of electricity, you can't take care of crime, you can't take care of anything in this country. So a lot of people had those sentiments that the president must resign. So for them, it's okay to practice this democracy. But in Africa, as long as you touch someone whom they love, like they make it seem like you want to overthrow the government.
And is not carrying the national agenda. We need a government of national unity constituted by all of us who are not driven by political party interest, but the interest of South Africa to resolve this immediate crisis, which will affect all aspects of our lives.
National unity,
Yeah.
you say. You also said at the time of the national shutdown, this shutdown is the beginning of a revolution. No one can stop it. No army can stop it. No police can stop it. Some of your members put out videos threatening to beat up teachers and police if they went to work. One even threatened to beat up pupils if they went to school. And you talked to me about national unity.
But that video of a person who was threatening to beat up pupils if they go to school is an old video. I think Hard Talk should have done its research to now realize that video has been resurfaced to support a certain narrative. There's no such a thing. I'm telling you, there's going to be a revolution. let the grid collapse, and let's see what's going to happen.
Let the grid collapse.
I'm saying to you.
How do you think South Africans are going to feel hearing you say that? People
saying,
who are losing their jobs, people who have no income, and you just say...
You are misinterpreting me. I'm saying to you, let the grid collapse as it is going to happen, and see what's going to happen in this country. I'm not wishing it. I'm saying it's going to happen, and you will see what's going to happen. Do you think that once the grid collapses, people are going to exchange roses with government? People are going to rise, and when they rise, there will not be any leader who will be leading them. There will be leaderless, there will be anarchy, there will be looting all over this country because nothing will be working. So if you think that I was bluffing on the 20th of March, I was just saying to this government and the people of South Africa, something ought to be done to avoid what is possibly coming, which is going to be a leaderless revolution.
But if you remember very well, like what Julius Malema is saying is basically true. Like if the grid collapse, people will go out there, they will riot, they will loot, and they will do everything because they will be so frustrated. I mean, like this is the same thing that is being happening right now in France, because we know that France right now is burning. But these people, you will never hear them talking about like, no, France is burning and everything. No, they don't want to talk about that. But as soon as Africans want to rise and actually fight for their rights, it's problematic to them. Why aren't they saying anything about France being burned down right now? Because France is turning into a failed state. The whole country is burning, but they don't want to say anything because to them it's just people expressing their frustrations. But if you live in Africa, you don't have a right to express your frustrations, because if you express your frustrations, you are called a lunatic, you are called a criminal, you are called a thug. But it's fine if they do it. I mean, we've seen it even in the United States after George Floyd was killed. People rised up and they killed people. They burned everything down. They were looting, they were doing everything. But to them now, it's fine. People are just mad. People are just expressing their frustrations. But if you are in Africa, as the moment you talk about actually rising up and actually fighting for everything, now they're gonna portray you as a dictator or some sort. And Julius Malema is actually telling the truth that maybe one day things are gonna get bad in South Africa. Like the youth of South Africa is not employed. What's happening right now in South Africa, it's a ticking time bomb. One day we're gonna wake up one day and everything will be burning in South Africa because people are so tired, because nothing is working in South Africa. The roads are filled with potholes, the streets are filled with sewages, there's no service delivery, the education system is fucked up, there are kids who are still dying in pit toilets, our healthcare system is a mess, because if you can't even go to public hospitals because things that are happening right there are a mess. So nothing is working right now in South Africa. It's only a ticking time bomb. I believe that it's only a ticking time bomb. There's gonna be a day when we wake up in South Africa and everything will be burning, just because people are so frustrated. People are frustrated in South Africa. People are frustrated in South Africa. People don't work. I mean, like over 60% of youth is not working in South Africa. It's load shedding, it's water shedding. Nothing is basically working. So it's like one day people are going to rise. That's what I believe.
Very powerful rhetoric, but the truth is, on 20th of March, according to employers, 70% of workers across the country went to work. One political commentator said that actually the failure of the national shutdown was a, quote, humiliation for Malema.
From where?
I don't understand why are they making it about Malema. Why are you making the shutdown about Malema? When Malema and the EFF said we are doing this whole thing for the country. I don't understand why are they making it about Malema. This is identity politics at its best.
Sitting, the shutdown was successful. Nothing was operating. The South African media was at the public transport, taxi ranks, at bus ranks. The taxi drivers themselves The bus drivers themselves have said, we showed up, but there are no people. So if you're going to listen to a desktop, possibly a racist analysis of wanting to undermine the narrative of the success of the shutdown, then that's your own baby to nest. But the reality is that nothing functioned on that day. You can go to the public broadcaster, you can go to independent media outlets in South Africa to give you the footage of the day, every corner. And what even makes me happy is that even in the rural areas, where normally the revolution never takes place, the people were out in their numbers saying, enough, it's enough.
Let's think about the lessons to be drawn from the current crisis, because what we see is a state-operated energy giant which is failing to work. It is not delivering power to the people. We have other major state-operated companies, for example, Transnet in the transport and logistics sector, which are failing the people of South Africa. When we could look at the aviation sector, all sorts of sectors where the state has failed. And yet your message is you still want to confiscate all privately owned land, essentially nationalize all privately owned land. You want to nationalize the mines, you want to nationalize the banking sector, and these are the key pillars of South Africa's economy. You want them all in state hands, and you, Julius Malema, are saying to the South African people, elect me, and I and my associates in the economic freedom fighters will run this economy.
Absolutely. You know...
Yes, of course. What is wrong with that? You know that the ANC government have fucked things up to the extent that people actually believe that the state is not capable of anything. Instead of saying the state is not capable of anything, why are we saying, why are we not saying employ right people, employ qualified people, people who actually know what they are doing there? Don't just employ someone because he's a member of a certain political party. Because the only thing, maybe one of the biggest hurdles that is hurting the ANC is this cadre deployment thing. Because they end up employing people who are not skilled enough, people who don't have qualifications to hold certain portfolios. They end up giving those people portfolios because they are the members and because they have the cadre deployment policy within the party. But that doesn't mean that the government is incapable of actually handling the mines, handling the banking system, and actually handling the land, nationalizing everything. It doesn't mean that. I mean, like, if you have qualified people who know exactly what they are doing there, there's nothing wrong with nationalizing the mines, nationalizing the banking system, and nationalizing the land. I mean, there are countries that have actually that have people who are qualified to do what they are doing. You can look at countries like China. To them, it's fine. Even in the UK, they are handling things. Most of the things are handled by the state. But in Africa, they don't want anything to be handled by the state. Why? Just because one political party like mess things around it, like, it doesn't mean that the government is incompetent. The government is just a body. The people who come there to fill those positions are the ones who are going to determine whether it's going to succeed or whether it's going to fail. So if you are the head of the state and you employ people who are not qualified to do that, or people who are not qualified to handle certain portfolios, if you're going to put them there just because they are the members of your political party, of course you're going to fail. But you can still approach the matter in a different way by saying no. Instead of just appointing people because they belong in our party, we are actually going to go out there and search and vet people who are qualified to do this. And the state can do anything. So just because ANC have made things bad, they just want to make it look like, nah, that's how Africans rule, that's how Africans run things. They're just going to mess everything up. There's nothing wrong with the government. But people who are there to run the machine are the ones who are wrong because they don't know what they are doing. There's nothing wrong with the machine. As long as you put correct people in correct positions, there's nothing wrong with the machine. So I don't see anything wrong with calling for nationalization of banking sectors, nationalization of mines and everything. As long as you have qualified people to do their job, people who are capable to do their job, then what's the problem? What is the problem? Because if the private sector, the only thing that private sector is proposing is that no, we can get qualified people to do these things. But that doesn't mean that a political party or a new political party can approach things in that manner. So I don't understand what's this obsession with these people, and they are against the thought of seeing Africans actually running their own things, owning our own things. Nah, man.
95% of South Africa is electrified. Do you know that South Africa gets water today? Do you know that South Africans, they're watching a public broadcaster? All these examples I've given you are state-owned.
But do you know that we have seen this experiment played out in other countries? I'm thinking of Zimbabwe, I'm thinking of Venezuela, and the model does not look good to many South African people who see it.
You know, it looks good. We're using it now. We were better off now owning this. It's not like I'm saying...
I don't even know why this guy is mentioning Zimbabwe, because he's trying to make it look like the Zimbabwean government was incompetent. You can look at other African countries; their government was incompetent. They don't want to talk about their involvement in the failing of Zimbabwe. You don't want to talk about the involvement of the West in failing of Zimbabwe. He just wants to portray it as if like, nah, Zimbabwe failed. But it's nice now because Africans are rising up. Africans are actually out there seeking information. We are starting to understand some of the things that we have been lied to about.
Let's go and take Eskom out of the hands of the private sector. We are owning it already. So South Africans have accepted and are happy with what
we're owning it already.
That's why that's why South Africans are saying, let's get proper people to go and run these institutions.
Are you the proper person?
I'm a proper guy.
I mean, I don't want to go too far back into history, but at various times you failed to actually file a tax return on time. Yeah. You've been accused of different financial offences. You've never been convicted, but some of those charges were never brought to court. But you tell South Africans, despite your own history, you are the guy to run their economy.
That's why. That's a mind of a lazy person who doesn't do his work. You will have to refer back to 15 years.
I mean, that is an old story. Everybody knows that is an old story. So if someone comes to you with an old story to try to portray you as this incompetent someone, like, which means they have nothing on you. So they just digged up a story from like 15, 20 years back.
I've grown up over a period of time, built a solid political party. The only thing you can keep on referring to is what you interviewed me about it 12 years ago. Get something new, my brother.
No, I'm very...
Show a skill of a hard-working presenter who does his research. You can't falter me. Since I've made my mistakes on tax when I was very young, when I was almost 27 years old, fixed that problem. Today, I'm a 42-year-old married man with children who has taken responsibility and built a solid party to be the third largest party without the support of white monopoly capital and the owners of the South African economy. You keep on referring to old and old things because you are now beginning to sound like a scratched CD.
You have every right to tell me
of me now.
You have changed.
Tell me of me now. I've been in Parliament for 10 years.
Let's take one particular aspect of your policy positions.
Yes.
Do you think aligning yourself with Vladimir Putin is going to be good for South Africa?
But that's what...
I mean, we are already aligned. Why is this guy out here asking obvious questions? We are already aligned. South Africa is already aligned with Russia, bruh. why are you asking obvious questions? Probably Steenhuisen was going to give you a different answer, but
it is now. South Africa is in alliance with Russia, with India, with Brazil, with China. So why are you asking me as if it's some policy that is going to be implemented after I took over? South Africa is in alliance with Russia now.
South Africa right now calls itself non-aligned.
In the context of the war. But these are two different things. South Africa is an ally of Russia. Now, the second question is, where does South Africa stand on the war? It says I'm a non-aligned in relation to war. But Russia remains South Africa's friend. So we cannot create confusion around there. Don't create an impression that it is Malema who's going to come and create an alliance with Russia.
But there are some very specific, if I may say so.
I will go beyond that. I will go beyond the friendship with Russia, and in the war, I will align with Russia, and I will even supply the weapons to Russia. Because Russia is in a war with imperialism, and any agenda that seeks to push back imperialist agendas is well within the policies of the EFF.
You say, quite clearly, I would arm Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
You know that the International Criminal Court wants Vladimir Putin to face war crimes.
I mean, like, why is he so surprised? I mean, like, this whole thing of supplying Russia with the weapons thing, that the West is making a big deal, is actually nonsense. Because if you think of what's been happening right now in Ukraine, America and its partners, they are openly supplying Ukraine with weapons. But they don't want anyone to assist Russia with weapons. But it's a good thing because Russia is the second biggest weapon manufacturer country in the world, so they are fine with weapons. So I don't understand it. So it's fine if the West, that clown, Zelensky was in London recently. They supplied him with weapons. The United States, they keep supplying him with weapons, openly so. But as soon as someone says anything, as soon as someone mentions giving Putin something, they act like that person killed everyone. So how is it okay for them to supply Ukraine with weapons, but how is it bad for us to supply Russia with weapons? I'm not saying South Africa should supply Russia or they shouldn't, but if they were to, what is wrong with that? Because clearly Ukraine is being helped by its partners. So why can't the partners of Russia help Russia? Why is it okay for them to supply Ukraine with weapons, but why is it so bad when other people try to help Russia in any other way? I don't know if these people are naive or they are simply acting stupid. I don't know. They act as if like we see things from their perspective. In Africa, we don't see things from your perspective. So we don't see things from the Western perspective. African countries have made it clear that they are in the middle. They are not in favor of Russia and they are not in favor of Ukraine. The only thing that Africans want to see is to see that war stop. They want to see ceasefire. But that is not the message that is coming from the West. Because even if you can go on Twitter right now, one of the congressmen of United States, Lindsey Graham of the Republicans, who was tweeting the fact that he wants to combine the Democrats and the Republicans to talk about pushing in Ukraine into NATO. But people who understand geopolitics, they do understand what's going to happen if Ukraine becomes a member of NATO. So if these people, they keep supplying Ukraine with weapons to fight Russia, but in Africa, the African countries are like, no, let's stop this war. But somehow they act like they are higher than us. I don't know why these people think that we see things from their perspective. We don't see things how they see them. We don't want the war to continue on. Because if, like in that war, the only people who are suffering are civilians. Innocent, unarmed civilians. Those are the only people who are suffering in all of this. Because people who are fighting, they live in those palaces where missiles don't reach. So the same people who are supplying this country with weapons to keep on attacking Russia are the same people who have a problem if a South African politician says, "Oh, if I become a president, I'm not only going to be a partner of Russia. I'm actually going to give Russia weapons." Why is it so bad? Why is he so offended when Malema says he's gonna provide Russia with weapons, whereas they are providing Ukraine with weapons? So clearly they understand that this is the double standard, but because they think they are better than us, that's why he's conducting himself the way he is. He's not even aware of his double standard. How can we expect South Africa to turn its back on Russia? Whereas South Africa, they are members of BRICS with Russia. I don't understand this, man.
Charges. It must start with Tony Blair.
Exactly.
It must start with George Bush. It must go to Barack Obama. Then it can go to Putin.
So let's get this straight. You're saying to me that your policy, if you were in power in South Africa, is quite simple. That your enemy's enemy, and it seems you regard the US and its allies as the enemy,
yes.
Your enemy's enemy yes. is your friend. Never mind if he's a suspected war criminal, never mind if the UN and the ICC say they have compelling evidence of Russian war crimes. You don't care.
So where is the evidence of that UN and the ICC? Where is the evidence when it comes to the crimes that that the Americans are committing there? Where is that report?
As far as you're concerned, my enemy's enemy is my friend.
You're exaggerating, but another point which you don't want me to go there is that Tony Blair accepted that they were wrong about Saddam Hussein to an extent that he did an apology of a thug, right? You have never called for his arrest. A man admitting that I was wrong. How many people died there, killed by those people? So all I'm saying is,
this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like these people, they have this double standard, but they are not even aware of it. They are not even aware of it. They don't care. They just go on and make things up as they go on. Why can't Russia's partners supply Russia with weapons, whereas they are supplying Ukraine with weapons? Why should Vladimir Putin be arrested by the ICC, whereas Tony Blair and other leaders are not arrested by the ICC? So this is the double standard that we are talking about. This is the exact same thing that pisses off Africans when it comes to these people. It's almost as if they don't understand what they are saying. Or they do, but they don't care. Because they regard themselves higher than us. So it's okay to contradict yourself there and there. I mean, this attitude, this is one attitude that people are actually pissed off. That's why Africans are so pissed off. That's why the world is so pissed off. That's why many countries are applying for BRICS right now. They are so pissed off about this double standard.
We are with President Putin because it's not enemy of my enemy. It is an anti-imperialist agenda that says the American dominance and its allies should be undermined at all costs.
Anti-imperialism, even though Vladimir Putin is quite explicit about his desire to revive a form of empire, he says countries like Ukraine have no right to independent sovereign existence. He appears to believe that the best thing would be to revive an empire, the Soviet empire. But you're anti-imperialist?
We're anti-imperialist. That's a debate for another day. The war is not what he's talking. The war is about the expansion. And had there been a common ground found, this could have been avoided. We are not for imperialism, even if it were to come from Russia. If he does that, we'll condemn it. But we know for a fact that progressive forces such as China have also aligned themselves with Putin to try and create an alternative from the imperialist domination of the world. And that's what the EFF is about.
You admire China, you admire, it seems, Putin. What you seem to have as a vision for South Africa's future is much more along those lines, authoritarianism, than democracy.
No, socialism is not authoritarianism.
These people, they talk about democracy, but they don't even want to talk about the freedom of speech is dying in the West. In the West, you can't say anything that you want, man. There's no freedom of speech in the West. Right now in America, they're even debating about what is a woman, man. You can't say a woman is an adult female. They're talking about the democracy, whereas they can't even speak in their countries. People are losing their lives, man. The cancel culture is killing them out there. People are losing their lives. People are losing their jobs there because of a tweet. But they want to talk about the democracy and that nonsense. They are not worried about the fact that like free speech is literally being cancelled in front of everyone's eyes. I mean, these people, they can't even define what is a woman. I remember the other day I was watching this interview with Candace Owens. She was interviewing this guy, Mark Lemont, I think. Mark Lemont Hill. Candace Owens was interviewing Mark Lemont Hill, and Candace Owens asked a simple question. Can a man get pregnant? And the guy said, sometimes. He said, sometimes. But they don't want to talk about that. But let's not talk about that right now.
So how can you describe China as progressive?
No, it's very progressive. China subscribed to Leninism and Marxism, where the working class control the commanding heights of the economy. And that's what we subscribe for. We are of the means of production being owned and controlled by the states. We want South Africa through the vision and the image of China, where you grow the economy, where you reduce unemployment, where you reduce poverty, and you can't take that away from China. And the state plays the central role with regard to that.
And I must say this again. There is nothing wrong with the state managing everything, as long as you have proper qualified people in positions, as long as you can actually audit how everyone works. There's nothing wrong with this whole thing. It bores me so much because they want to act like we can't govern ourselves. We don't have qualified people. We are not qualified enough. But there is nothing wrong with the state running everything. As long as you have qualified people, proper people, like Malema said, then you can run everything. I mean, just imagine if the ESCOM was not being run by politicians, man. Can you imagine what would happen if ESCOM was not run by politicians? Do you think like South Africa right now would be experiencing like this load shedding? This is exactly what we are talking about. We are where we are today because ESCOM for majority of time has been run by politicians. But if you get rid of politicians and you actually put engineers there to run this entity, you will never experience load shedding. If you take qualified people and put them anywhere, you will never have any problem running that. But because we live in a country that has been run by politicians for so long that things are not working, nothing is working, because most of these people, they don't understand what they are talking about. When they are in parliament, the only thing they know is to sleep, wake up and go home. They're not even ashamed to sleep live on national television. But if you have proper people in relevant positions, there's no reason for state not to run everything. So there's nothing wrong with nationalization. There's absolutely nothing wrong with nationalization. There's nothing wrong with having government run everything. We must not create confusion here. Just because the ANC have run things the way they are, just because the ANC has collapsed like all these state entities, it doesn't mean that we can't get people in there who can put qualified people there and everything can run smooth again. We must not create any confusion here. There is nothing wrong with the machine. As long as you put relevant people who are exceptional in their work, there's nothing wrong.
That kind of message and the messaging on Russia has seen the rand plunge against the US dollar. We see many corporations in South Africa looking at establishing headquarters elsewhere. We see foreign direct investment flatlining in this country. Do you believe that the rhetoric you are using is good for the South African economy?
I've been doing this from when you interviewed me.
You know, guys, sometimes when these people talk about the direct foreign investment, I wonder, like, I don't know, maybe I'm naive or maybe I don't understand. Can someone please explain it to me if I don't understand it? When these people, they always tell us about investors. They always tell us about investors. But where does that money go? Where do those investments go? People are not working. Companies are not opening up. The state is not hiring as much. So where does that money go? I don't understand. These people, they always tell us about the foreign direct investment. And I'm always like, bruh, if we have 60% of unemployment amongst the youth and you're going to come and tell me about direct foreign investment, what the hell are you talking about?
15 years ago when I was young, and therefore you can't say the rand to dollar crisis today is created by this message that I've been spreading for so many years from my early ages. And then this
no, but what I'm suggesting is that the new tensions between Washington and the government in South Africa have definitely affected the financial markets.
No, it was the crisis as we see it today, as we have this conversation, me and you. It was worsened by the irresponsible utterances by the ambassador of the USA, who just recklessly, without following the diplomatic protocols, went out to make certain allegations about our country, damaging its good image, and then undermining its sovereignty in terms of choosing who its friends are. And today we see the rand being weak because of such utterances. Why would?
And that guy was so disingenuous because he went out and said that South Africa is supplying Russians with weapons. But when he apologized like in back doors. It was really strange for me for an American ambassador to go out there and say like South African is providing Russia with weapons. He didn't even talk to anyone. Like Malema said, like the guy completely ignored all the diplomatic protocols. He went to the newspapers and said this, damaging our name. But when he apologized in back doors. He didn't apologize in public. And this is how these people play this. Isn't it the same thing that they did with the weapons of mass destruction? Saying that there are certain weapons there in public, even though you know that there are no weapons there. But if you apologize, when you apologize, you're apologizing in back doors. But when they release the statements, they call each and every reporter in the country. So it's really strange. And this guy will never mention it. If Malema didn't mention it, this guy was never gonna mention it.
The rand be weakened by a political posture that says this is what we want to be when we take over government. We want a government that will be owned by the corrupt free. I admire China when it comes to how it deals with crime. I admire China when it comes to how it deals with infrastructural development. I admire China on how it has dealt with poverty and unemployment. How would that weaken the rand? Is that not what the investors want for all of us?
The most likely way that you can get a grip on some power in this country is by forming a coalition with the ANC after the next election. You could have a role if you were to do a deal with the ANC. Are you ready to do it?
The reality is that the EFF is the only organization that is growing, and that the DA
Exactly.
and the ANC, the DA, which is the official opposition,
Yeah.
ANC, which is the ruling party, are both significantly declining to a point where the DA called us the enemy number one. Why did they do so? Their own internal research tells them that the EFF has overtaken you. That's how much our policy position has attracted the people of South Africa. We are not going into coalition for positions. We are going to say anyone who wants to work with us. And we've said this before, and that's why we're not working with anyone in the local governments. If you want to work with us, you are going to expropriate land without compensation. You are going to nationalize the mines. You are going to establish a state-owned bank. You are going to make sure that we fight crime, fire by fire, to make this country a safer place. Those are just but minimal, non-negotiable points that will engage
this
with
one used to
anyone.
cry.
Non-negotiable. All of that
Non-negotiable.
non-negotiable. On that basis, it's hard to imagine you can make a coalition with anyone.
ANC was more than willing. Actually, ANC was at a point of signing with us on expropriation of land without compensation. Remember, we even put this in Parliament. How did it pass to a point where Parliament had to do an investigation if the ANC was not agreed? We were almost at the edge of getting a deal. And some young ANC clowns decided to vote against this. But we're not going to retreat in returning the land back into the hands of our people. And don't tell me about Zimbabwe. This is going to be done through a democratic means, like we did, in consultation with all South Africans, black and white, on how best do we get the rest of our people owning the land and other strategic sectors of the economy.
You know there are some South Africans, and let us be blunt, many white South Africans, who fear Julius Malema. Some of them have said to me, if Malema gets to power or close to power, I will leave this country.
Liars, liars, liars. They have said this thing about Zuma. So what? So now people must not vote for someone they like because white people in South Africa, they will run away. If people want to vote for Malema, they must not vote for Malema because white people will run away. So what's the basis of this question basically? I don't understand. Those people, do they fear him or do they fear his policies? Because I don't think they fear Julius Malema as a man, but they fear his policies. Because his policies are not aligned with what they want. That's why they say they will leave, I think. But I don't think they fear Malema. Why does it he portrayed as if Malema is this monster that people fear? People don't fear Malema. Even his political rivals, they don't fear him. I don't think people fear Malema because he's a man just like others. But here it's a sport of ideas. And they fear his ideas, they fear his policies. I mean, like we know.
Do you welcome their fear, or do you want to find ways to overcome their fear?
I don't welcome their fear. Stephen, they said that about Mandela. The most celebrated Mandela. You're talking about me. They said if Mandela, a prisoner, becomes the president who will live in this country, and they left. I was in the Val River the other day, looking at some of the houses that whites abandoned in 1994 when Mandela became a president. They are not scared of Julius Malema. They are scared of an independent black man who's not controlled by any white person, who's not controlled by London.
Last year, you said this. It was after you'd questioned whether a particular white person, why they hadn't been located and, quote, taken to an isolated space where our supporters could attend to the guy properly. And you went on to say, you must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing because killing is part of the revolutionary act.
Absolutely.
This was last year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't say you're a revolutionary and then be scared to kill. But once you go killing people around, you are a terrorist. When you've got the support of the majority of your people to engage in war, and the majority of the people are with you, that is the revolution. It's not terrorism. And therefore, I'm not a terrorist. That's why I'm saying, at least for now, the conditions have not dictated that there should be anyone who should go to the bush and engage in war to kill. But if those conditions necessitate, will without hesitation do that. The same way the generations before us, when conditions necessitated, they were not scared to take up guns and shoot to kill. So I'm not saying anyone must be killed. All I'm saying is, let everybody come to the party. Let's build this one country and give away our privilege.
But
for the privilege of all.
Your vision of South Africa's future, will it come through the ballot box, or will it come through what you call a revolution?
It will come through the ballot box. A ballot box that produces a revolutionary party will unleash the revolution. And the revolution, when it is unleashed through democratically elected government, is the changing of the system, where you radically defeat capitalism and introduce a socialist state. We still believe in the EFF, fundamentally so, that the power to the people must be ushered in through the ballot. And nothing else must be looked at except the ballot. However, when the need arises to defend ourselves through whatever means necessary, we'll do so without hesitation.
Julius Malema, sadly, we're out of time, but I thank you very much for joining me on
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, this is one of the most embarrassing interviews Stephen Sackur has ever held in his life. Because this guy came here in South Africa with that arrogant attitude of his. And Malema put him in his place. And shout out to Fikile Mbalula too, the Secretary General of the African National Congress. He put him in his place too. He had to go to the DA to talk to Steenhuisen to say whatever that he wants to hear. But I just want to say thank you to Julius Malema, and I just want to say thank you to Fikile Mbalula, because they've shown us that we are actually rising up as South Africans. We are actually rising up as Africans. The time to fear this journalist is like, it's over. It's over. This is one of the most embarrassing interviews Stephen Sackur has ever held. He knows that. He got destroyed. Like they say in the West, he got destroyed. Eviscerated. So if you haven't watched the interview of Fikile Mbalula, please go out there and search that interview of Fikile Mbalula and Stephen Sackur and see how Fikile Mbalula put this person in his place. Then he goes out there to do an interview with Steenhuisen. I mean, if you can listen to Fikile Mbalula's interview and Julius Malema's interview, they are saying they are saying the same thing basically. So Steenhuisen is saying then, just like he's saying they're gonna arrest Putin, just like he says like the South Africa should lean towards the West. He's telling him what he wants to hear. But what's your judgment based on those interviews? If you listen to Julius Malema's interview and Fikile Mbalula's interview, and you listen to Steenhuisen's, and I think that thing as a whole, it can give you a sort of conclusion. So guys, please drop those comments, tell me what you thought about this interview, and please don't forget to hit the like button and hit the notification bell so that you can get notified whenever I drop new content. My name is Thomas Mabaso, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.